doesn't know is that actually I'm not here to do a lightning talk at all. I'm actually here to sell some T-shirts. So, £50 for a T-shirt. I liked Citizens Assemblies before they were cool. No takers, okay. A few takers. So, a few of you in the room, or well, many of you in the room, might think you like Citizens Assemblies, because you've heard of the Citizens Assembly in Ireland. But I was there at the beginning. I know about Ontario and British Columbia and all these other Citizens Assemblies. But actually, this kind of T-shirt and its slogan has a really important point to make. So there's a lot of interest in Citizens Assemblies at the moment because of Brexit. So people have seen the Citizens Assembly that happened in Ireland and are thinking that could be fantastic here to deal with the deadlock and the complexity of the issues that we face in the UK with Brexit at the moment. But I'm here to say that Citizen Assemblies are not just for Brexit, and deliberative democracy indeed isn't just for Brexit. We need to think much more ambitiously than that. So let's rewind a few steps. None of this is going to surprise you, but democracy at the moment is not working as it should. I mean, to state the obvious, but there we go. And that's for a number of different reasons. So the first one is that decision makers are struggling to get things done. We're seeing kind of stalemate in Parliament at the moment on Brexit, but that cuts across lots of other issues as well. We've had decades where no kind of meaningful decisions being made on things like social care funding, on health funding, on how we pay for our roads and infrastructure in the future. This is not just an issue that is restricted to Brexit. The second is that, understandably, the public are getting really frustrated that the system isn't working for them. And that's leading people everywhere to feel really kind of divided, distrustful and powerless within our democracy. But I'm here to tell you that things can be different. And we know that things can be different because there are lots of examples from around the world of actually how this can work differently. And we at Involve kind of advocate for three principles of democracy that we think need to be, reinstalled in our democracy. So the first of those is openness. So people understanding the decisions that are being made on their behalf, who's making them, and how they're making them. The second being participation. So people having the opportunity to get involved in those decisions, having a say over the decisions that affect their lives. And the third being deliberation, which is having the means within our society and within our politics to be able to negotiate our differences, find out where we have kind of common interests, find where there's consensus, but also understand where there are differences of opinion and kind of navigate those in a much more constructive manner. We have the tools to do that. So Citizen Assemblies are just one of those many tools. Listed here are loads of other ones that we've seen in action around the world. Just to pull out a few of them, so we heard last night about kind of co-production and the values behind co-production. We've got lots of examples of things like participatory budgeting around the world, lots of methods out there and tools that can really help to put people at the heart of decision making. And we have the examples, and more examples, day by day, of this actually working at a national level and a local level. So one of the most recent is the Madrid Observatory of the City, which is going to be a group of randomly selected citizens from Madrid who will be there as kind of a permanent chamber of the Madrid City Council, and will be there to kind of scrutinise the work that both the elected representatives and the council are doing, but then also offer their kind of input into the big pressing issues that are facing Madrid City in the future. Lots of examples of citizen assemblies around the world. So we've got the one that's happened in Ireland recently, but lots of more kind of local assemblies across kind of Canada, Australia, and Poland. And as I said before, lots of examples of participatory budgeting as well, actually putting people in charge of how money is spent. We're seeing that taken to a really significant level in places like Paris and New York, who are spending serious sums of money through residents in those cities deciding for themselves. So what are we waiting for? And I suspect there's nobody in this room really waiting for anything, and actually the reason we're all here is because we're passionate about this. But actually, the pace of change up to now has been quite glacial in terms of how we're embedding these innovations in the way democracy works. So, particularly at the moment, where we're surrounded, it seems, by kind of the crises of democracy every day. It seems to be getting worse. Now is the time really to kind of kick into action and to make as much progress as possible. And that leads me to the Maker Day we had yesterday, which was all focused around that principle of deliberation. How can we embed it more in the work that local councils do? So these are a few of the photos from the day. You'll find them all on Twitter if you want to have a closer look at some of the characters involved. But we had some really, really fantastic discussions yesterday. We had a group looking at how young people could be more involved in local democracy, coming up with a whole host of different policy solutions for that. Included within them was the idea of an open forum for students and local people to engage constructively on issues in their local area. We had a group looking at the question of what's in it for me as a councillor, and thinking about a manifesto for how deliberative democracy could help to solve issues for them, amongst other things. We had a group of guerrillas who were working on top tips and ninja tricks to encourage councils to adopt a much more deliberative approach. We had a group looking at making deliberative democracy more accessible, and one of the things they picked up on was actually the term deliberative democracy perhaps isn't very useful. We need a new language that actually embeds this in the way that people live their lives. And lastly, we had a group looking at the idea of a model in a box to creating an open source framework. So taking this from something that a few organisations like my own do to something that everybody can do in some shape or form. So we had some really fantastic conversations yesterday, and all of the stuff at the beginning about I like Citizens Assemblies before they were cool. Of course, it's a bit of fun. It's fantastic that there's so much interest in Citizen Assemblies at the moment. It's fantastic that people are actually starting to think creatively about different ways in which we can do our democracy. But we need to move from that to actually really embedding these processes in the way that democracy works at a local level, at a national level, and also at an international level as well. And I believe that the people in this room are the beginning of that change. So I'm looking forward to having those discussions with you today. Thank you very much.